1960. Universal Studios asked Hammer to do a werewolf movie based on the 1933 novel The Werewolf of Paris by Guy Endore. Anthony Hines was tasked with the project and given a budget of $100,000, though it's not clear if it is in pounds or dollars. He was later told that the budget would have to include the rights to the novel. After reading the book, he realized that, due to budget concerns, whole parts of the book would need to be ignored, like recreating the storming of the Bastille. The budget also would not allow for a screenwriter. Anthony Hines had helped prop up other scripts, such as The Brides of Dracula. But this werewolf film was to be his first official script for Hammer. He used the pseudonym John Elder and was not paid as a writer. To further complicate matters, he was told he was using Spanish sets built for another film, The Rape of Sabina, a movie about, not to be expected, the Spanish Inquisition. Hammer submitted scripts for both films to the British Board of Film Classification, BBFC, and the board secretary, John Trevelyan, read both of them and warned,
"Each of these is liable to run into serious censorship trouble. I am worried about the effect of these two pictures on your company's growing reputation."
With the BBFC's denial and heavy criticism from Catholic groups in the US, James Carreras pulled the plug on the Inquisition film. The BBFC were also horrified at the werewolf film. One member complained,
"The first 18 pages come to a climax, not of horror, but of sheer bestiality."
Richard Wordsworth, who played a beggar whose active SA leads to the monster, stated that he was originally a werewolf in the script, but the censors would not allow it. After changes, the script was finally approved. The film was made. In June 1961, The Curse of the Werewolf was released to mixed reviews and a weak box office.
Help me!
A wandering beggar arrives in a Spanish village during Christmas festivities hosted by a sadistic nobleman. The beggar becomes an object of ridicule for the Marquis and his court, who mock and humiliate him for sport. His desperate pleas for mercy earn him imprisonment in the castle dungeon instead of charity. Years pass in captivity. Alone and degraded, the beggar loses both sanity and humanity, transforming into a beastly man. Only the pity of a mute servant girl offers him fleeting connection. When she rebuffs the Marquise's advances, the nobleman imprisons her with the beggar, who, driven by rage and despair, attacks her. Soon afterward, the beggar dies and the girl escapes into the countryside, traumatized and pregnant. Exhausted from wandering, she collapses near a small town at Christmas time and is rescued by a kind scholar, Don Alfredo Corledo, and his housekeeper, Teresa. The woman dies, giving birth to a son, Leon, on Christmas Day. A date cursed, as the priest warns, because no child should be born on the day Christ was born. That day belongs to him alone. Holy water sprinkled at his baptism hisses on his skin, foreshadowing the horror to come. Leon grows up under the loving care of Don Alfredo and Teresa. In his boyhood, however, strange signs of the curse emerge. When the moon is full, he becomes restless and overcome by bloodlust. The family discovers farm animals savaged at night, and Leon awakens in anguish, unaware of his actions. Don Alfredo arms himself with faith and affection, hoping to suppress the evil through love and prayer rather than punishment. For years, this devotion keeps Leon's impulses in check. As an adult, Leon leaves home to seek work in the nearby town. There, he falls in love with Cristina, the virtuous daughter of his employer. Her affection seems to calm his inner torment until circumstance interferes. Wrongly imprisoned after a bar brawl, Leon is confined during the full moon, and the curse manifests fully for the first time. His body is racked by pain as he transforms into a wolf-like creature, driven by a thirst for blood. He kills a fellow prisoner and escapes, initiating a reign of nocturnal terror. Leon wakes from transformation, horrified by his own actions. Convinced he cannot be cured, he begs Cristina to flee and his foster father to end his life. Despite their prayers and attempts to restrain him, the next full moon seals his fate. The village assembles to hunt the beast plaguing them. In his final moments, Leon, transformed and cornered atop the church bell tower, is shot by Don Alfredo with a silver bullet, an act of mercy guided by love.
Tonight we're going to be reviewing Curse of the Werewolf. Interesting in many ways, it's Hammer's only werewolf film, directed by the greatest horror director ever, Terence Fisher, and it was scripted by Anthony Hines under the John Elder sobriquet. There's a lot of things that I can say about this movie, but it's not one of my favorite Hammer films. Oliver Reed, young, strong, it was before he went out and partied with the British Navy. We know how that worked out.
May 2nd, 1999. According to David Franzoni, screenwriter of Gladiator, Oliver Reed ran into a group of Royal Navy sailors at a bar and challenged them to a drinking match. During the match, he became ill and collapsed. Reed died in the ambulance en route to the hospital.
It's worth watching. It's really worth discussing, and I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion on it before we get started.
I really didn't like this movie. It seemed disjointed because the first half hour of the film has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. And that's very much a problem.
And again, what you're pointing out there is this. Most of the better Hammer movies punch you in the face in the first couple of minutes of the movie. They put some kind of shock value in it. This one, they give you a lot of exposition. If you want to parse it out, it does play into it later on when he has a conversation with the priest.
Right, because the inherent weakness from his soul that made him vulnerable to werewolfism. And I will say, the critic at the time said visually it was a very lovely film, but it did lack something. But I think part of the reason it lacked is when they went away from the book. It's in the book, the rape does happen too, but it's a priest who raped the mute girl. I guess the original book, it's also, even though it's a werewolf book, it's also an historic novel because the guy who wrote it had it happening during the Franco-Prussian War. So you had all the weird stuff that was going on in Paris at the time. And one of the reasons they probably took all that out is when they decided to make the movie, since they were sticking to the Universal Monsters, Michael Carreras was trying to write a Spanish Inquisition movie. So he's already had this big Spanish set built and nothing to do with it. You know how they love to save a dime, so why can't we just change the book and make it happen in Spain? So then they had to change a whole lot of stuff to make it work. And that's when they changed a lot of things. But as far as him, the reason he became a werewolf is that is more from the book. However, the guy who plays a Beggar in here, Woodsworth, actually said in an interview that he was told by Hines and the other producers that he was supposed to turn it into a wolf at the time, but they couldn't do that because the censors were like, no. No interspecies sex.
When the mute woman was by the priest,
Right.
Where did that happen?
I don't know. I didn't read the whole book. I read a quick synopsis. Actually, I didn't read the
Right.
whole book last night. That there was part of issues too between two families, and a priest belonged to one of the families, which is another reason why you raped her. But she did escape from him, and then the rest of the story takes place.
Gotcha.
And strangely enough, this is also sometimes called the Dracula of werewolf books because of the way he tells his story in the book, like they did in Dracula, through
letters and journals.
It's an epistolary novel.
But if you think about it, in the book, it's not. He likes to rip flesh, but it's the blood that makes him really, really excited.
Sounds like a Peter Curtin thing.
Actually, from what I was told, it was based on Francis Bertrand, who was called the Vampire of Montparnasse. He was in the army in Paris at the time, and he was doing weird stuff.
I'd also like to point out that Guy Endor, the author of The Werewolf of Paris,
Yes.
real name was Samuel Goldstein. Endor is also known for the left-wing novel of the Haitian Revolution. He wrote the story of G.I. Joe, which is actually an impressive movie with Robert Mitchum. That was an excellent movie. I got to give him credit. I didn't know this guy. You know, before we get started, there's actually one thing that has bothered me since I watched this as a little kid. What the hell kind of font are they using on the credits? Have you noticed that?
Irwin Allen font, I like that. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre. It's just so strange and off kilter to stuff. I mean, what the hell? What kind of font is that? And it's a good point. You're probably right. That does kind of look like Lost in Space stuff.
Okay, so I started at this point, and I did a quick cut the best I can because you don't want to show long clips with YouTube. And I get why they say that.
Some 200
Here's
years
where the
ago,
beggar comes in.
a beggar came to the little town Santa Vera in search of charity.
But also,
here's
his
point out
ability to
that-
make it evident that the people aren't happy with the marquee.
Doug Llewellyn, dude from all the 17 Bond movies.
Yes, that's why I stopped it there and made sure his part got here because it's the only part he has in here. That is him. That's why I put that there. So you see him? The Marquess, Anthony Dawson. You talking about him? This guy being cute. The guy you see being cute. When I show the Marquess again, Anthony Dawson. Here, let me.
If from the deep charity of your noble master's heart.
Go away, man, before he sees you.
You see him as cute right there.
No one, my lord. Just.
That guy is Anthony Dawson. He was also in several Bonds. He was the first enemy to be killed by Bond in Dr. No, and in Thunderball.
Smith & Wesson, and he had his 6. That was what Sean Connery told him after he shot him. You had a Smith & Wesson, you've had your 6.
But in From Russia with Love and Thunderball, where they show Blofeld, you don't see his face, but they show him stroking the cat. He's the guy stroking the cat. It's a different man's voice, but it's his hand stroking the cat. Whatever you want to take from that, there it is.
Just a beggar.
Well, bring him in. Would you like to have him, my dear? As a pet? How much do you want for yourself? 2 pesetas? 5? 10?
10 pesetas, my lord?
Done.
Just pocket changing him.
And now they're giving him wine.
Hey, not in that peddling little cup. Here, fill this.
Yeah, come on, give him more.
Fool, I must have food.
You must sing for it first.
I can't sing.
Dance then. Dance! Dance!
Actually, I was thinking that this scene would end with him like cursing the royal family or something.
Please give him something to eat.
Here, dog. Here's your bone. Go on, come and get it like a good dog.
It was kind of expected Prince Andrew to come out from under the table, but on top of that.
The former Prince Andrew. But the scene itself is a lot longer than that.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes or...
We were saying earlier, there was no punch in the face. There was a bunch of exposition, and see all these other, like she's a victim. I think this is the one we're going to toss for Yvonne Romain in there, right?
Right, which we have to mention her because apparently she was the one who was shown most in the promo shots, even though she doesn't appear in this movie with Olive Reed in any scene.
I'd like to think that it's because she's so freaking beautiful.
What happened here, of course, is the Marquess takes offense at something Beggar says offhandedly, so he basically puts the guy in the dungeon where he has nobody but the jailer and the jailer's little daughter who grows up to be Romain. The sad thing is, Yvonne Romain, even though she's a big part of this story, They never actually give her a name. She's just the servant girl.
And she doesn't have any lines either.
Marquez, 10 years later, makes a play on her. She bites him to get away. He throws her in the cell with the beggar, who's been locked up this whole time with very little human contact, to the point where he's probably insane. And this is what happened.
You're to stay there until you've learned your manners.
And just to go ahead and finish up with this lovely young lady, at this time she had already been married to Leslie Briskus, who Dr. Doolittle. Think about it. Running the Chocolate Factory. He did all those lyrics. He was a freaking
Also helped write Goldfinger. There's the plot points.
Yes. Well, here's the other thing that makes it sad is this. She did nothing but be kind to him. She fed him and gave him stuff. Now she's in here, and instead of repaying her kindness, he's really filthy too.
So did she ever do any other Hammer?
Wasn't she in the one with Captain Plague?
Yes, she was. The Night Creatures, which is an interesting film. After she ends up killing the Marquez, she ends up running, trying to live in the woods until you meet Alfredo. Alfredo is the man standing here as the gentleman in front of.
He was also the professor in Kiss of the Vampire.
Clifford Evans.
And may I say how interesting it is? Because those are two totally different characters, and he played them both extremely well.
Yes. Well, actually, what I was just going to say, as far as when we're talking about the movies, I honestly thought this would have been a good opening for the movie.
I kind of agree.
Good point. Just saying this particular scene to me would be like, what is going on around here? But they seem to take it all in stride.
Leo, ego te baptizo in nomine Patris.
There's a little breeze in it.
When even the baptismal water is crying no.
Yeah, don't do it, bud. Don't do it.
Oh, look.
And actually, I like that because it was one of those is it or isn't it moments kind of thing.
Well, it is throughout this whole movie.
Ego te baptizo in nomine Patris.
Sort of laughed it off, and I'm thinking to myself, what?
Et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
That is what the movie is good at, and probably what they were trying to do is he really a werewolf, or is it all in his own head? The next thing that happens, as he grows up, sheep and goats are getting torn apart, and you kind of know it's him, but could it be the dog? And by the way, that's why I guess when I show you that, the next scene, for one reason, it's a quick scene, it's just one quick clip. This kid. I found it amazing that they found this child, or maybe even made this child look exactly like Oliver Reed probably looked like at the age of 10.
I noticed that too.
They really went to a lot of extremes to try to find a kid to look just like Oliver Reed. I mean, he doesn't say his parts very well, but all he has to do is stand there and show him his hair, his hands and stuff. And in that scene, what I didn't show is that Alfredo is removing a bullet from the child's arm. So you assume that he was the wolf the night before that the hunter Pepe chased off. Alfredo starts realizing something's going on and starts talking to the priest. And I put this next scene in there for one reason, because you have to have, anytime Michael Ripper's in the film, a scene's going up. It's like in The Shroud of the Mummy, and sometimes he has pivotal moments in here like this.
It was no ordinary wolf, gentlemen. No ordinary wolf would.
That is Michael Ripper.
And he's drunk.
Drain blood. Every last drop Well, if it wasn't a wolf, what was it? Last night was the night of the full moon. And you know what that means. What?
That's Pepe
Here.
and his wife.
Who's going to pay for all these drinks?
Give it to him. It means that things are abroad. Things? What sort of things? Strange things that should not be spoken of.
I always had to show Michael Ripper, but the thing is there's two. So Pepe thinks so maybe he knows what he's talking about, goes back.
I start realizing that there might be something supernatural about the sheep killings. Exactly.
Right. He melts his wife's crucifix, which is both silver and has been specially blessed by the Archbishop, and turns them into bullets. While that's going on, Alfredo talks to the priest, finds out about if you have an unwanted child, his soul may be weak and can't fight off the forces of evil that want to enter into his body. And he ends up putting bars on the window and trying to show the kid lots of love. And while that's going on, Pepe goes out, shoots something that he thinks is going for the sheep. Turns out to be one of the shepherd's dog. So what ends up happening is the boy grows up to be Oliver Reed and decides he's going to go off and make his way in the world. Aunt Teresa and Daddy Alfredo goodbye, and ends up coming to a winery to get a job.
Tommy, can you hear me?
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Leon Corrido.
Senor.
Senor.
Guess you can see what he thinks of him, huh?
You look strong. Do you like work?
Yes, when I'm paid for it, senor.
You better come in.
Now that was an interesting scene because we meet the guy that you think was going to get really killed.
And he didn't really deserve it. He was just a drunken fool.
That's why I kind of showed him too, but I also wanted to show you just why he's starting to lose a grip on his soul weakness because he's getting treated like a second-class citizen. He's not being too bad yet. He goes into the winery, meets Jose. You meet Don Fernando's daughter, Cristina, who is engaged to that dick, but she doesn't like the dick, which is why I put this in here to show you. It doesn't really serve a purpose of the film, but it kind of does the way she actually treats the dick, Rico, like a dick, just so she can rush.
It's very unfair. This is the third evening running we've had a headache and we've had to come home early.
I can't help having headaches, Rico.
No, but it's beastly inconvenient all the same. And I was winning, too. 100% as I stood to win if my luck... No, it's not the money.
What is it then?
Well, it's very unfair. That's what it is.
You know, I shouldn't say this, but this is Catherine Feller.
Take a look at his career. She does do some acting, but not a whole lot. She actually becomes like a addiction coach and a professor and things like that. And she actually, for a long time, did radio work in Italy.
But in here, she plays his love interest that keeps him pacified, basically.
Right, and this is how she keeps him pacified. She rushes home that night just so she can go into his arms.
First roll in the hay.
Oh, I thought you were never coming.
I thought I'd never get here.
So is she really innocent? I don't know.
She's a strumpet.
She's in a way, she's got pure love for him. But what actually winds up turning the tide and making him, bringing out the beast in him? Did you brew that scene? Here we go now. He goes out. They get drunk, and they get drunk in a brothel.
But it's also the night of the full moon. He gets drunk. He goes outside. He's feeling the stirrings. A prostitute takes it for, well, he's going to be a mark, and she takes him upstairs. And this is what happens.
Yeah?
and she's a strumpet.
Exactly the point.
Here. What's the idea? That's what you came for. You came to the wrong place. Have a good mind.
There again, you see the hairy hands, but you don't see a full transformation, so you go, well, what if?
Yes, you don't know he's a complete beast yet.
And they didn't really actually show the bite. They showed his face over her, but you never see the fangs piercing because they never did in Dracula's early on either. Now, I showed this scene for another reason too, because he goes nutty that night, kills her, kills Jose, runs back home where he kills Dominique, the shepherd, whose dog got killed early on, and Alfredo finds him in his childhood bed, naked and writhing in mental pain. He starts figuring out what happens, says go home, we'll figure it out. He goes back to the winery, only to have the police meet him going, hey, something happened last night, where the hell have you been? And Don Fernando giving him a lecture about going to those kind of places. But in between there, Alfredo took him to see the priest who tells him what's going on. He says, you're not locking me up like a wild animal, and goes back to the winery. He knows that night is the night of the full moon. He's been told it may happen again. He's in a mental consternation, and Christine shows up again and holds him.
Was he in mental consternation?
Well, he kind of was, because remember, he's like, you're not locking me up like an animal, and runs and screams. Well, Oliver Reed himself, and he would have been embracing it, I'm sure.
He would have used the word consternation.
And holds him throughout the night, and he doesn't change, and he realizes she's his beacon of light and says, you've got to run away with me. And she says, this time I will. And I showed this scene.
It's when you think it's going to turn out well.
The cops come before they take off. He gets arrested. The dad shows up at the priest. He tells him there's nothing else left to do. Apparently I killed 3 people last night, and I need to die. So they go see the mayor. Now, the mayor in the middle there, I put in there for a reason. That mayor, he's got over 400 IMDb entries, and most of them are listen to the voice and see if you can figure out who he is.
What is it you want me to do then? Please, hand the boy over to me so that I may take him to a monastery where he'll be looked after.
No, that's impossible. No, the boy will have to stand trial.
If he is kept in this town until after sunset, he can't be responsible for his actions.
What do you mean?
I mean that he will break out of prison and kill wantonly and savagely, like an animal.
That is Peter Sellers. He is the voice of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. So a lot of his credits in the IMDb.
Where he's talking about cheese.
He's no longer with us. He passed away in 2017.
Well, lived at 96 years old, though.
But I would mention him, too. And he was also one of the bad guys, one of the 4 men in Taste the Blood of Dracula, who raised the money to get the blood of Dracula. So I figured I wanted to show that, but I also showed you because that's a plot point, too, where they go to the mayor and they try to explain it to him, and he doesn't want to buy it. But he's like, what do you want to do about it? Take him to monastery? No, he's got to face trial. He goes to talk to him in the cell, all 3 of them, and then Christine shows up. Oh, Leon, how could they do this to you? And the mayor's like, he's not a beast. I mean, look at her. She's so sweet and innocent. He must be too. There must be some misunderstanding. He's going to trial. Daddy, Don Alfredo, rushes to find Pepe the hunter to get the silver bullet he had some years ago, because he knows he's going to need it. While that's going on, what ends up happening, of course, is we finally get to see the transformation in jail.
It will soon be as bright as day.
Not the shirt.
Again, Michael Ripper.
The irony of him being in, he called the shots. He knew this was going to happen.
So, now we get to see the finished portion there. Because he breaks loose, starts on a rampage, but doesn't end up killing the fop. The one guy who probably should have died in this thing.
And I want to say this much. Another flaw in this movie was this scene lasted way too long. Through the town, the rooftops and stuff, and he was like looking down on them. They could have cut a couple of minutes out of this. Easy.
They chase him into a bell tower, and Daddy goes in to seal the deal.
Well, I thought that was a flaw for a lot of the movie. That it would have been nice if they had a sharper, punchier script. I don't know exactly what changes, except I would cut the first half hour out and concentrate on the rest of the movie.
Well, see, the thing was, I don't know if I would, because to be honest about it, I see what you say from one point of view, but when people talk about this film, the one thing they remember the most is that first part. Because
it was kind of tepid, the first part of it. I know what you're saying. If it was something that I would think to punch up this, there should have been more violence or more sex.
Well, if they would have connected the first part of the film much more strongly to the second part.
I agree with you.
Because they don't do a very good job of that in this film. All we really see in the first part is the conception of the child under bad circumstances.
Yeah, and what an ugly world that they were living in at the time, when power could victimize anybody.
Absolutely, and you wish they had kept that up, and I agree with you. That's why I'd like to read the original source material. But as the original Wolfman picture, Daddy's the one who has to take care of business. I'm amazed they had a rabble, because usually they have Freuded.
Very Universal Studio.
Yes.
Yes, especially with the torches.
How many times did he come home from a bar looking the same way?
What's funny is they didn't have to waste any money on any kind of special effects to turn him back into Oliver Reed.
And yeah, I'm with what Kevin said. Overall, that the first part didn't, but the sad part is if you didn't have that first part at all, it could have been redone, and the Marquez could have lived, and he could have found a way to destroy the Marquez, since he's the one who started everything.
Is there a reason that Hammer only made one werewolf movie?
I can't say this for sure because I see it in print, but one thing I did know for sure, it did not do as well as the other three, as Frankenstein.
Dracula and the Mummy.
The movie itself, to me, was very clunky.
Yeah, it was. But see, you had Slow Movie 61 doesn't really bother critics at the time. Most of the critics were positive. You had a few negative things. It did not do as well. That is why they probably did not continue the werewolf thing, because they saw no commercial viability in it.